poison 3 times.
Now let Diddy out. Free Diddy.
Wow, you think somebody didn't want me to do this interview? Yeah, somebody didn't want me to do this interview. Why are so many people coming down with pneumonia?
What could cause an experienced performer like Diddy to get obviously agitated in a courtroom, and why is Ray J yelling for Diddy to be free? His next revelation left the court in stunned silence.
I think it's kind of becoming a circus, and all the allegations, and now with everybody explaining like what's happening in the bedroom. I mean, every day it just sounds crazier and crazier and freakier and weirder, right? And I'm like trying to understand, with all this being said, like with Kid Cudi going on and saying everything that happened, but then ended up saying, Cassie played both of us. You know, it's like, where are we trying to go? Are we just trying to like tell all of these crazy stories and then that equals out to sex trafficking? I mean, it's starting to become outrageous. It's a RICO case. It's really only Diddy and maybe one other person. Like, I'm just starting to feel uncomfortable, and I'm starting to feel weird about this whole thing.
Well, it was certainly interesting last week when I interviewed this guy who had the pseudonym The Punisher, who was hired, and it was Cassie Ventura. Right, so it was a sort of very interesting interview because Cassie Ventura did all the negotiating, did all the payments, and did all the texting to him. Diddy would sit in the corner of a hotel room naked, and he would watch, with her apparent full consent, this guy come in and have sex with her. And it happened maybe a dozen times over a 2.5-year period. Now, none of that says to me that that is a serious crime. If she is the one that is organizing it all. Now, she is arguing it was coercion and so on. You know all these people very well. You know Cassie Ventura. You know Diddy well.
The courtroom was already tense, and as Dylan sat at the defense table, the judge and the crowded gallery watched every move he made. The trial attracted both journalists and onlookers, with almost every seat occupied and cameras blaring outside the doors. There was a lot of excitement in the air as people whispered softly and reporters flipped through their notepads. But even in a trial that had already seen many unexpected turns, nobody could have imagined what would happen next. The room was instantly silenced when Ray J, who had been sitting calmly among the crowd, abruptly sprang up and let out a roar that ripped through the muted atmosphere. His scream reverberated off the walls of the courtroom as he cried, "Free Diddy!" His remarks were not only motivated by rage, they were also motivated by desperation, and for a split second, everyone's heads turned to face him. The combined shock that was evident on everyone's faces, Ray J's outburst halted the judge, causing a gasp to reverberate across the gallery. In the middle of a sentence, Diddy's normally composed demeanor was visibly shaken at the defense table, and his hands fidgeted on the table as he avoided eye contact with the scene unfolding just feet away from him. The judge scowled in deep surprise, and her gavel hit the bench with a loud crack, demanding order. But the scene was uncontrollable. Ray J's words carried weight that went beyond simply supporting Diddy. He made it clear that there was more going on beneath the surface. "You don't even know the half of it," he added, raising his voice even louder. "You're all looking in the wrong direction." While some jury members exchanged confused looks and others kept their eyes fixed on Ray J, trying to process what was happening, the lawyers for both sides were frantically whispering among themselves, obviously trying to figure out how this disruption might affect the case. The murmurs of the throng became more audible, their interest now transforming into blatant conjecture. The courtroom was tense, and Ray J didn't just seem insane. He seemed to be making a point that none of them were ready to hear. It wasn't simply the words "Free Diddy" that seemed to unsettle him. What Ray J hinted next carried an even harsher message. The tension was almost palpable, and Diddy's unease became increasingly apparent as his eyes darted about the room as if looking for a way out. Ray J was eventually escorted out of the courtroom by security, but the impact of his words lingered, and the atmosphere in the room completely changed. Ray J's cryptic statements hinted at a hidden truth that had not yet been revealed, and the weight of his outburst left everyone struggling to make sense of what they had just witnessed. What could Ray J possibly mean? What secret could be so dangerous that he would risk an outburst during such a high-profile trial? And most importantly, How did this involve Diddy? Reporters scrawled frantically as the crowd continued to whisper. Whatever the answer, it seemed like the trial had just taken a turn that no one had anticipated.
Just thinking, like, what year are we in? Like, it feels like we're in this vortex of like this dominatrix story about all of these different characters that are coming out and the names and the nicknames. And I mean, it's intense. I think that it's entertaining for sure, and it's definitely press worthy. But at the end of it all, it's like, this is what Diddy is being charged for, and this is what he possibly might serve a lot of jail time for. I don't understand it, and I really want to know where this is all gonna go and where does this lead? Because again, it's weird, it's freaky, like the whole oral thing with the 19 guys and the blisters. I mean, it feels like they're just trying to paint these pictures of Diddy, and I was around Diddy all the way pretty much up until the arrest, and all I got from that when I hung out with Diddy, and this is word to my mom and kids, he's always inspired me to be great. When I left, I felt like I could do more for my business. I felt like I had more power because I wanted to be more vocal and running my companies and call my wife if we were getting into it and send her flowers. I mean, these are all the things he was instilling to me and all of the young guys around that were inspired and you know, look at him as a mentor. So now these private things that happened when we were around and never even got a chance to see this kind of crazy stuff, it just sounds like this was a private, personal thing that was happening, and now it's starting to become it's diabolical.
After Ray J's angry outburst, security took him back to the witness stand, where he sat down, visibly shocked but determined. The judge, still clearly irritated by the disturbance, banged her gavel once more and commanded silence as the courtroom attempted to re-establish order. All eyes were on Ray J as he leaned forward, his voice firm but emotional, and the muttering stopped. Ray J's subsequent remarks were not only unexpected, but they completely altered the atmosphere of the room. "I'm not just here to defend Diddy," he said sharply. "I'm here because someone tried to end me, and I'm done staying silent about it." The gallery was tense right away. There was a general uneasiness in the crowd somewhere in the back, and some reporters exchanged shocked looks, their pens scrawling frantically to record every word he said. The air became heavier, and the prosecution scowled, clearly taken aback, while Diddy avoided eye contact with everyone, seemingly willing to blend into the background. "They know who they are," Ray J continued, looking around the room. "They've been walking around like they've won already. I'm talking about James Winston," Ray J said flatly, making sure every syllable was clear, and then he dropped the bombshell. Everyone's heads automatically turned towards the defense table where Diddy sat stone-faced. His voice cracked slightly as he said the name that hung over the room like a thundercloud. Gasps erupted from the audience, and a woman in the gallery audibly exclaimed, "What?" Before the judge demanded order once more, James Winston was a name few expected to hear, a well-connected figure in the entertainment world. Winston was known for his business dealings with some of the biggest players in the industry, but for him, to be accused of attempted murder was a revelation that sent shockwaves not only through the courtroom, but also through social media. As the news spread almost instantly, reporters scrambled to type faster, some whispering the name into their phones, while others shared the story live with their editors. And yet the weight of Ray J's claim was heavier than mere gossip. He went on to describe incidents he believed constituted an organized effort to silence him. He discussed cryptic warnings he had received near brushes with danger, disguised as accidents, and a chilling encounter, where he believed his life was genuinely at risk. "I've been holding this in for too long," he said, glaring straight at Diddy across the courtroom. "But they know I'm right. They know what they did." No one could take their eyes off Diddy, whose face was unreadable, but whose hands showed the slightest uncontrollable quiver on the tabletop as whispers flooded the room once more, despite the judge's attempts to keep the proceedings under control and caution the court against more disruptions. It was obvious that this claim wasn't only a sideshow, it suddenly felt important to Diddy's trial, leaving many wondering what proof, if any, Ray J had to support it. Ray J's testimony hung in the air like smoke, impossible to dismiss whatever came next.
To me, unless I'm wrong, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you think that there's been a massive overreach here. This is personal behavior between Diddy and Cassie Ventura that we've seen so far, that it doesn't cross the line from where you sit into serious crime under the RICO law, which of course was intended for mafia members and so on. Do you think that's what we're witnessing here with this case, that this was consensual? It may be freaky, it may be sexually deviant, it may be all these things, but it was apparently consensual behavior and not a crime.
I agree, and there's things that we saw in these videos, and they were disturbing, and that's not okay, right? But looking at the crimes that he's being charged for, this is where it starts to go overboard, and it's like whoever was mad at the top was really mad, and I think we're here now, and I think it's a flex, because like, what are they trying to get out of this in this court case? Does everybody that's talking about these stories, do they want to see Puffy rot in jail? Is that what we're here for? Because I just think that that's unfair, and just knowing everybody, it just could have been done a different way, and now it's starting to worry me, and I honestly think that Diddy will get out, and I think that there's nothing here. Right? I think they made their point, whatever they were trying to make. Your point is made.
Diddy was renowned for his measured coolness, a man who rarely allowed emotions to seep through his well-maintained public persona. However, as Ray J's charges penetrated further, that meticulously constructed exterior started to show indications of stress when James Winston's name was spoken out. Although Diddy's initial reaction was so restrained that it was telling, his posture stiffened. His left hand, which had been steady on the tabletop for the majority of the trial, slowly gripped the edge of the table. His jaw remained clenched, and his gaze was fixed straight ahead. From a distance, this may have appeared to be composure, but anyone paying close attention could see the tension creeping in by now. The audience sat frozen, the jury remained expressionless, and they were told not to react, but their combined energy was evident. Diddy, however, refused to meet their gazes, or anyone's for that matter. Instead, his head dipped slightly lower, his hand moving to adjust his collar as if the air around him was suddenly suffocating. His attorney leaned in, whispering something quickly in his ear, but Diddy gave no response. His focus locked on some invisible point on the floor. It was clear the accusations had shifted the very axis of the trial. The attorneys for both sides scrambled to process this new volatile twist. But in the gallery, the shift was immediate. Phones buzzed from muted vibrations as texts and tweets flooded out faster than anyone could keep up with. Reporters leaned into each other, confirming the spelling of Winston's name, already strategizing the headlines they'd release the minute a break was called. Meanwhile, Diddy's reaction, or lack thereof, was becoming one of the most watched moments in the room. This wasn't just about Ray J anymore. It was about how Diddy carried the weight of these claims and how the world outside the courtroom would interpret every crack in his carefully maintained image. And the cracks were beginning to show as Ray J continued recounting details about what he claimed were orchestrated attempts to threaten his life. Diddy's cool exterior started to falter. His shoulders sagged ever so slightly. His breathing appeared labored, and for the first time since the trial began, Diddy placed both hands flat on the table, his fingers pressed against the surface as though grounding himself. But then came the moment that silenced even the whispers, when Ray J described a specific incident, an alleged close brush with death involving tampered brakes on his car. Diddy's composure broke entirely. He leaned back in his chair, a deep exhale escaping him, and for the briefest moment his lips parted as if to respond. He quickly caught himself clenching his jaw again. But the damage was done. His reaction confirmed the weight of what had just been said. This wasn't just courtroom theater anymore. It felt real. Outside, this moment was already spreading like wildfire. Social media was alive with speculation. Was Diddy cracking under the pressure? Did Ray J's claims have merit? What would this mean for the already precarious trajectory of the trial inside the courtroom, though? Diddy's silence loomed larger than any words he could have spoken, every reaction, every twitch, every labored breath. None of it went unnoticed. And as Ray J's testimony edged closer to his evidence, it seemed that whatever composure Diddy had left was on borrowed time.
Whenever they have an addiction to MDMA or the drug ecstasy, they call it the love drug. So he's been doing this drug for over 20 years. So that's going to lead his view skewed when it comes to sexual activity. I believe it's helped turn him into a sexual deviant. And, you know, what type of man wants to see another man urinate in his wife's mouth? I feel like it's evil. I think his behavior is egregious. And, you know, I have a history of using very heinous acts on people like this who participate in this type of lascivious acts. Have you ever noticed how in this industry, people untimely meet their demise as soon as somebody else seems like they're having a problem? Have you ever seen that before?
Well, there was, of course, the case of one of his other ex-girlfriends, Kim Porter, who died of pneumonia at a very young age. You've just referenced your own situation with pneumonia that you believe was deliberate poisoning. Do you believe that may be what happened to her?
Jamie Foxx said out of his mouth that his partner handed him an Advil, and after he took that Advil, he woke up 22 days later. That's what he said out of his mouth. I feel like us as a species, I feel like human skepticism has become a virus, because if we don't trust the words of our peers, where are we as a species? You know, eyewitness testimony and circumstantial evidence is enough to get a person a life sentence in any court on the earth. Why is it that when people are whistleblowing and putting their life and livelihood on the line, they receive so much scrutiny? I don't think that's by chance.
There have been rumors circulating online that Diddy may have poisoned Jamie Foxx, which caused his 2023 hospitalization. In his Netflix show, he compared Combs to the devil in revealing his near-death experience after a brain bleed and stroke. So I say this all the time. I saw the tunnel. I didn't see the light. It was hot in that tunnel. I thought, shit, have I gone to the wrong place? I looked up at the end of the tunnel and I thought I saw the devil saying, come on. Or was that Puffy? I'm effing around, but if that was Puffy and a flaming bottle of Johnson, and no, I'm just kidding, I think that you have taken that to be a not too oblique reference to the fact that he's suggesting he may too have been poisoned.
Ray J's earlier claims had already rocked the courtroom, but now that the judge had ordered him to continue with his testimony, all eyes were on him as he paused and drew out the moment. The silence was so thick that even the slightest squeak of someone shifting in their seat seemed amplified for a split second, making it seem as though no one dared to breathe. Ray J cleared his throat and started. He leaned closer to the microphone on the witness stand and stated, "I brought receipts." What happened next was nothing short of captivating. He first produced a stack of printed out emails that he said were direct correspondence between himself and James Winston's accomplices. Ray J referred to a number of terrifying statements he read aloud in these emails, including one that said, "We'll make sure you're silenced permanently if you keep talking and let the weight of the words hang in the air." These letters occasionally used ambiguous language. When he turned to another piece of evidence, phone records that he said demonstrated numerous calls from an unidentified number, the courtroom fell still as everyone awaited his next move. According to Ray J, these weren't just threats. They were warnings connected to certain situations. According to one such call, which was made just hours before his nearly catastrophic car breakdown, it warned, "Watch your back accidents happen every day." The court permitted the presentation to proceed despite the defense's prompt objections, adding that the evidence will speak for itself. However, it was Ray J's display of a picture of what he said were altered brake lines from his vehicle that really stunned the jury. He explained how his technician had discovered the issue and how the prosecution tried to cast doubt on Ray J's credibility by asking why he hadn't come forward with such evidence sooner, but Ray J didn't bat an eye. "This isn't just about me," he said. "I stayed quiet because I was scared I didn't know who I could trust, but now I've had enough." The mechanic claimed that the intentional damage wasn't consistent with normal wear and tear. Some jury members leaned forward slightly, unable to conceal their curiosity, while others kept their faces carefully neutral. Even while the evidence was circumstantial in some cases, it was strong enough to make everyone uneasy, and the courtroom was silent as the attorneys clustered in whispered chat. The judge's face stayed neutral, but it was obvious that she was considering the implications of what had just been presented as the session adjourned for break. The rumors and speculation only intensified, and whatever happened next, it was certain that Ray J's claims could permanently alter Diddy's trial, as well as his career and public perception.
Because the last time I was scheduled to be in this interview, randomly, our car gets hit from the side by a blacked out vehicle, no license plate. That's happened 3 times this month so far.
Really?
Somebody didn't want me to do this interview. Yeah, somebody didn't want me to do this interview. You know, I'm somebody where I've had FBI come to my house before and tell me they found a threat against my life.
Diddy, this seems like every day the scandal gets bigger and worse for him.
Yeah, it certainly does. And I'm not surprised whatsoever. I mean, I think I was on your show before he got arrested, and I brought up what was going on with him, and because I had read through the lawsuit, and it was just one of those things that was unavoidable because there was so much evidence. I mean, there was picture documentation, there was video documentation. And I also want to be clear that the press and the media and the public at large is shocked by what's happening, but we really are just getting to the beginning of everything.
It started happening to remove people from the case that are going to strengthen the case for the prosecution. And I feel like we're watching that take place now with one of the male sex worker guys who provided tapes to the feds. He's disappeared. And this is similar to what happened in the Tory Lanez case, where the bodyguard whose DNA was on the weapon, he disappeared.
She and Cassie needed to sway Kid Cudi against telling the cops that Diddy was involved in the alleged break-in. Clark testified, quote, he says, if you guys don't convince him of that, I'll kill all you MFers. But that wasn't the only time that Clark said that she feared for her own life. She claimed Diddy once accused her of stealing diamond jewelry. Said that she suffered through 5 straight days of lie detector tests inside of a gutted, run-down Manhattan office building. She testified the man giving the tests warned her, quote, I'm not getting a good reading. You need to calm down. You're going to be in the East River if I can't get a reading on this.
The prosecution had alleged in its opening he had staffers who helped him commit crimes that aren't necessarily charged, statute of limitations expired, etc., but that he committed as part of this overall criminal enterprise. Phil, let me start with you on whether the prosecution is making its case.
Well, it sounds like, Megan, they're finally getting into some of the meat of the matter, because up until now, we've heard a lot of emotionally charged testimony. We've heard about domestic violence. We've heard about, third-rate burglaries and things like that, like you were just discussing. But we haven't heard much about how this was some type of criminal enterprise related to, sex trafficking. We're starting to hear now that who these people are that are the other racketeers. You've got other employees, security personnel. And so the government is starting to make its case. They've got a long way to go. But until today, I had a lot of reasonable doubt that things that I was thinking about, because these witnesses all seem to have some degree of kind of affection for Combs, or maybe had affection in the past. And it may be that they all had some kind of an angle, some incentive to testify against him, maybe sour grapes.
Ray J's testimony had an instantaneous and enormous impact. Within hours, his charges were featured in every major media outlet's news headlines. As the Noise Die Free Diddy started trending globally with more speculative ones like Ragewasite and Winston, social media exploded with theories, memes, and arguments, transforming the trial into a cultural phenomenon. Fans, critics, and casual spectators took sides. Ray J's claims had brought the entertainment industry into the spotlight, raising uncomfortable questions about what else might be lurking beneath the surface inside the courtroom. The prosecutors appeared visibly shaken up until that point. Their strategy had been straightforward, keeping the jury focused on the charges against Diddy, but Ray J's revelation completely changed the dynamics. What had started as a trial focused on Diddy suddenly became a tangled web linking power fear and the hidden dangers of celebrity life. His charges against James. In the meantime, prosecutors faced increasing pressure to address whether Winston's alleged involvement created reasonable doubts about Diddy's culpability. Winston's dramatic testimony forced everyone to reevaluate, and the defense team huddled during break, undoubtedly considering how this new direction might actually serve their case. If Ray J's story diverted attention from Diddy's actions, it could potentially blur the jury's focus on the charges altogether. Diddy had long balanced his role as a cultural icon against ongoing controversy, but now even his most ardent supporters were forced to face uncomfortable questions. The trial, which had once had a clear trajectory, was much messier, and both teams appeared to be aware of how high the stakes had risen for Diddy. The fallout went far beyond legal strategies in the court of public opinion perceptions. Did he know more than he told the media, or was he an unwilling participant in something bigger? There was no denying that, whether believed or not, Ray J's testimony had permanently changed the course of his career and his public image. However, the most striking moment came when the judge addressed the courtroom just before break. The fervor outside the courtroom spilt into late-night debates with pundits wondering whether this trial could reveal cracks in an entertainment empire that had endured for decades. Ray J's accusations not only implicated Winston, but they also brought he as the court adjourned for the day. Questions remained about whether Ray J's evidence could stand up to scrutiny and whether Diddy's defense would take advantage of the chaos. Allegations of this magnitude must be thoroughly examined, she said, locking eyes with Ray J. It wasn't a dismissal nor an endorsement, but it was an acknowledgement of just how serious the situation had become. One thing was certain. Whatever happened next may change not only the trial, but also each person's legacy. Even the biggest empires can be rocked by the revelations made during celebrity trials, and this one is no different. Ray J's shocking. Allegations have brought attention to the volatile and high-stakes world of celebrity, where even the slightest flaw can bring towering reputations to their knees. However, with unresolved questions and unfinished stories, this trial is far from over, and what happens next could permanently change lives and careers. If this case has taught us anything, it is that nothing is ever quite as it seems in the world of high-profile scandals.